All right, I'm back streaming live on this Azure Functions project I've been working on to do notifications for when PowerShell Live streams come online. And I have been working the past few days on getting ARM template deployment working for the application itself, um, in attempts to have the entire thing working as code. So code is code, infrastructure is code, configuration is code, all of that. So I can use full CI/CD pipeline goodness for all pieces of this from start to finish. And where I left off yesterday was kind of disappointing. I was working on trying to get app settings to work as some kind of parameter. So being able to pass in parameters um, with the app settings in them, with the name and the type, and do some voodoo magic inside the deployment template to actually parse those and turn those into the app setting features. And where I left off, I was unable to get this working. I was getting some error message about uh, the values, like if requires a boolean, and I did some research and I found I'm not the only one who's coming across this. So apparently, if you try to use the reference function and side of an if statement, you end up getting that weird error message. So I'm not exactly sure what's happening to cause that. It's kind of sad, but it looks like it's either a limitation or a bug, but nothing we can do. So I can't use this monstrosity of logic that I worked out. It won't work because I've got if statements, and inside those if statements, I've got resource ID and reference being called, and that's what seems to cause the strange Boolean error message. So this monstrosity won't work. Um, I was trying to do some other stuff within the uh, template itself. That's ending up not working. I can't use functions because you can't call reference from inside a function. So one idea I had was to use linked templates to do the work of building out the app settings. So the crux of the issue is that I've got like several classes of app settings. So I have some that are static, so they're just, text. Um, I have some that are stored as secrets in a key vault, and unlike a lot of other apps out there, I'm not using where I'm importing the secret directly as the value. I'm using the new preview feature for referencing key vault values. Um, so it would be possible for me to set those as static, but those aren't the only class I have. I also have a class of ones that are required by the function itself to run that require the storage name and the storage key and the insight key. And all of those are required to be gained through references within the template itself. Um, so the way that I thought about doing it was creating a linked template that would serve as a kind of proxy function of some kind to kind of go out and get these references and return them. But there's some limitations on that as well. So you can't use reference in the variable section. There's no such thing as like a dummy resource that you can deploy to trick this out and then call it. You can use reference in the output section, but you can't do any looping in the output section. So, like, what I would have to do is I'd have to have one link template that does does kind of some muxing. So it comes in, it does very basic logic. It has like 4 or 5 resources in it for each of these different types, and then it uh, calls another link template that uses the output section to return the fully referenced and all that variable and all that kind of stuff that I would need, and bubble that back up through the output of the muxing link template and then pass that back. that's a lot of work. I uh, I don't want to do that for this project. I do think internally I'm going to have a need for that because uh, this is just painful. Like if functions supported using the app settings JSON on top of the environment variables, if that was a supported scenario, this wouldn't be a problem because then I could deploy the app settings um, as part of the application deployment piece and not worry about that. I could just have the uh, function specific ones, which are pretty much all static or references. I could do those manually inside the deployment uh, JSON. Um, and then when I deploy my app, apply my application level settings. Uh, there's no love there. It's not supported. There's only one person out there that says that it is, and a bunch of other people saying it's definitely not. So I'm not going to bother trying. So I've kind of resigned myself at this point that I'm out of options. I'm out of ways to engineer around this that don't require a significant level of effort. I've already spent like 2 days trying to get this working. Um, so I think that I'm at the point now where I'm just going to resign myself to manually putting these in here uh, and no longer doing any kind of special looping and just manually define these within the config itself. So um, I need an app settings section here, and this is a name value pair. I think this is an array. I have to look if it's an array. I think it's an array of, and it's going to be name value pairs. So I'm just going to create a bunch of these. All right. So I think I've created enough of these. So I'm going to start off with the uh, Azure Functions specific ones that are required for Azure Functions to work, and have nothing to do really with my application. So that is function extensions version. So this is, I was testing something before I started here of just doing different scenarios of trying to create a linked function, a linked template to take care of this. That was kind of a failed experiment. C'est la vie. So next one is function worker runtime, which is .NET. Website node default version. So anyways, I need to find out who I can talk to at Microsoft about making this a little less painful to do. So this one takes in the storage name, which is a variable. This one takes in the storage key, which I believe I have code for generating down here. I've just got to adjust it. So concat default endpoint variable storage name. This is correct. Account key, list keys, storage accounts, variable storage name, storage accounts. Yep. So we can reuse this one for all the ones that are a storage key type. Azure Web Job Storage is another storage key one. App Insights is the App Insights reference, App Insights key reference, which I have here. So I was pretty sure there was another one. Looks like that's it. Okay, so the next class I'm going to do is some more static ones that are application specific. I'm gonna open this one on the side. That might be a little easier. The instead of going back and forth there. Don't have a whole lot of screen real estate due to zooming in, so it's easier for you to see on the video. Sacrifices I make. Anyways. Go back here. So I'm at notification template. No, that goes up here. Discord notifications. What did I do here? I'm just gonna Discord notifications. I'm gonna do some work on this side and just copy paste because these are already stop. So I left off at Discord notification. So I'm just gonna copy these ones in. I've got a extra static here. Get rid of that one. All right. Get this out of here just so. All right. Now the next one is to deal with the secrets. So I have code to do this in the thing here that I just need to adjust. Move this over here for now. I think this one's old. I think that I discovered that there was a better way of doing that. So there's the app insights one, storage key. Yeah, secrets. Um, this one. Going to borrow this code block here to copy this here. And now I need to, this one's working right. Variables, vault name. So I need to get rid of this part where it's doing app settings. This is just going to be a string for each one. Ugh, that's going to be painful. I think I'm going to generate this. Because this is a complete mess. Copy this. Go down here. Pull this in over here to do this. So pretty sure all the secrets are the same. And items, so I'm just basically going to save myself some time of having to do a whole lot of crappy copy paste and replace this with item dot name. Just see if that works right. Did not. It's not in the correct format. Ugh, probably got something weird in there. Oh yeah, this. Ugh. Have to escape those. Format and JSON are not the greatest of things to use together. Yeah, results. Join. Set clipboard. Let's try this. You over here. Back to the things here. It's after this. Yeah, that came out perfect. Not. Oh well, that's good enough. I just need to do some multi-text edits to make it look not suck. Nope, too much. There we go. Missed one here. And then these are all now not needed. All right. So in theory, this should create the this should create them like that. I really hate doing this inside the template. In my theory, in my opinion, the resources section of the template should not change when your application code changes. It should only change when the underlying infrastructure changes. And in my opinion, app settings is something that should be configured as part of the application deployment piece. But since it's kind of like hybrid between controlling what the application does and what the infrastructure does, that's kind of not possible. So it might be better if you want to have better control over your environment to have some kind of abstraction to get either an environment variable or something from a JSON in there. So probably something like the configuration add-on. I don't know how you make it work properly, but that might be one way of doing it. But in my opinion, app settings are not infrastructure, so they shouldn't live in the resource body. But so we're gonna get rid of that. Looks like I had some extra things there. Okay, so we still pass in the function name, the location, the resource group, and the vault name. At least that's pretty simple to build this out. Um, so I'm going to save this. I'm going to close out this side view, come into our thing up here, make sure I've got resource group set. I'm going to do a template validation pass. App settings. I have not removed that from the parameter section. Fail fast. So we're good there. I need to get rid of this app settings reference here. All right, let's give that another look-see. Template is valid. Now the real question is whether it actually deploys properly. So all the infrastructure is really there. The only thing to be doing is applying the setting piece, which is not there. So this shouldn't take too long. Running it yesterday wasn't, but this time it should actually apply settings. The other thing that I realized was that you can't use copy inside like a nested object. So I'd have to figure out some way to do app settings at the top level, and there's conflicting information about whether that config resource is still usable or not. Invalid template. Secret URI with version doesn't exist. Okay, I am missing something completely in my secrets section here. Reference resource ID, vault resource group, key vault secret, vault name, directory. Okay. Find all references. No? Can't use that one then. That sucks. I just want to see if it's on the I've got an empty one here from when I was working this out. Let's try. Let's try that. These all look legit. That one was funky. So So VS Code extensions that I would recommend, let me look at my ones that I have on here. Uh, Azure account. So like all of these are part of like the Azure ones. I would definitely recommend getting those. Azure Resource Manager tools is what's helping me write the ARM template. Um, if you do anything with TOML configurations, Better TOML's pretty awesome for that. Bracket pair colorizer is what's doing this whole like bracket colorization, which is really helpful. Uh, Obviously C sharp if you're going to do any kind of C sharp. Uh, the code spell checker. This one's a great spell checker that is really good at doing camel cased spelling and all kinds of stuff. I use it pretty heavily to make sure I'm kind of spelling things properly. Uh, the Markdown lint and Markdown all-in-one, those are great to have to help you write decent Markdown. Uh, I've got Papyrus because I've started doing some Skyrim mod development, so I've got the Papyrus engine. PowerShell, definitely, like you should be writing in PowerShell, and this is what you should use to do it in this VS Code with the PowerShell extension. Um, VS Code icons is great to give you some better icons, and the YAML um, one I think comes part of the add-on stuff. The XML tool ones actually isn't as great as I would hope it would be. It's kind of lacking, but those are the ones that I use in a nutshell. The Azure function ones has played pretty heavily in what I've been doing here, and the Azure Resource Manager one has been also pretty heavily in what's been going on in this one. So this failed. Why did it fail this time? Okay, so I've got a duplicate in here. That's not shocking. This happens. Is there anything else that it told me? No. We're making progress here, slow and steady. Slow and steady. You're welcome, no nonsense. I like that. I like that username. It's pretty awesome. Come on, work. No! Twitch stream activity is also a duplicate. How many duplicates do I have? I'm really hoping that's the last one. thinking about it. Ah, looks like it added them. That's pretty awesome. Um, yeah, so I added this piece of code here afterwards to go and pull in the names of the values. The values for them are all in there too, but I don't want to show them obviously because some of those are secrets. Um, so the question is the function app running? Before I go there, I since I did come across this kind of way of doing multiple evaluations on something, even though it didn't work due to the reference. Um, if you're doing something a little bit simpler, I've putting a link here in the chat, but there's a gist on my GitHub gists for how to uh, do this kind of logic. I've got kind of a demo of it working with doing some simple things like math operations. So I figured I'd share that out. The so we've deployed here. I'm going to switch over to Firefox and take a look at the resource group, and then go into the Azure function. I'm going to look at app settings here just to see. These are all being populated. This one should be a plain text one. Yep. Uh, this should be a, yep, it's a URL to a vault thing. So this is a secret reference. It's not a secret itself. It's looking okay here. I'm going to restart the application. There's currently no functions deployed to it. So it looks like it's running. I'm not sure this App Insights is going to show me anything worthwhile. Just look at failures, see if there are any. Probably not. So the cool thing about idempotency then is that I can run this again. Oh yeah, the I haven't done too much with the Twitch REST API since I started this because the only piece that I'm really touching is the subscription hub. I'm not doing anything to call out and get anything special. I thought about doing something like going and grabbing the stream title and including that in the messages, but it's no. I wanted to keep it simple. um, I'd have to have a lot more robust error stuff in my Twitch client, error handling in my Twitch client. But their API is a bit frustrating in my opinion. Just looking over it, it's kind of inconsistent in how some things are done, and that's not cool in my book. I like consistent. So yeah, it's running in theory here. So just to validate that Twitch consumer secret, I'm going to switch over to Firefox and go into the application settings here, and it should be, which one was I looking at? Twitch consumer secret. So that's not listed. Oh, there it is. No, no, Twitter consumer secret. My bad. So it's there, um, and I should be able to either remove or change this. So I'm gonna switch back here, and I'm going to change this to this, and run this again. And just to validate that it's a reference to a secret, not a secret itself. Um, huh. Right, so that completed. Switch over to Firefox. I was reading this while this was running. This is the link that No Nonsense posted to the paste bin of doing some stuff with the Twitch API. That's pretty awesome. Using some invoke web request, I see. Nice. So we can go in here and go into the application settings, and now the Twitch consumer secret will be lol password. So I'm going to switch back to VS Code and change that back, redeploy. So one of the lessons that I got out of this was that I can't deploy the secrets. So what I do want to test is um, just to verify this, I'm going to go back into Firefox here and go into here and refresh. And app settings. Twitch consumer secret is now back to the URL referencing the secret. Awesome. So that's good and working. So one of the things that I did early on was I was trying to deploy the Key Vault along with the site, and I couldn't end up doing that because secrets would require me to store the secrets somehow and then pass them in, and then I was like kind of stuck in this loop where chicken and the egg with secrets, and I'm not sure that secrets actually support full item potency, so I wanted to do a test. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new resource group here. WestUS2. I'm going to call this test KV. I'm just going to call it test KV ID because I'm going to put this all like for test key vault item potency. Um, create that. I'm going to create a key vault. In it after it shows up. And then add key vault create resource group test KV uh, test KV ID standard one principal create. I'm going to kind of cheat on this and grab the automation script here and create a new one. Okay, so I'm not going to have any secrets in here, and I'm going to add a secret and do this, but first I'm going to deploy this just to make sure that it works. Copy path. I think this is where I was doing it down here. Yep. The purpose of this exercise is really to see if secrets are destroyed if they're not defined in the ARM template, and if they are, dude, did it really fail with their automatic one? Vault already exists. Okay, I need to do complete on that. Complete and force equals true. Okay. Well, no duh. Maybe key vaults can't be... Maybe key vaults just can't be deployed item potently. Like, I'm not even showing the screen here. So this is the craziness that I'm running into. So I've got this test KV ID. This is what I copied and pasted from the automation. We can get rid of the comment, it doesn't matter. But it's got the same location. These are the defaults. I'm not really doing anything special here. It's just deploying key vault. And I'm then coming over here and I'm just deploying that a key vault with new Azure resource group. Oh, I know why. This is a different resource group name. I am this should be test KV ID. That's why. It's trying to deploy a new one to the old resource group that I was doing stuff with. Never mind. Okay, let's try this. This should be working now. Okay, so it doesn't do anything special because the key vault's already there in the resource group, so it's just kind of like a know nothing deployment right now. Um, in theory, in deployments, if I were to add a key to the key vault, secret to the key vault rather, it would get deleted when I do a complete deployment, and it's not listed because it is a resource that can be deployed. But I want to test this theory because I just worked on the assumption that since it is a resource you can deploy, that its lack of presence in a complete deployment would delete any secret that's not in the deployment definition. So we're going to create a test key with a very secret test thing, text, plain text. I'm going to create this so it's there, just to do some validation that it exists. Pull this up, show secret, it's there, we're good. All right, so this secret is there. I'm going to run the deployment again. And if my theory is right, that because the resource is not in the resource deployment, the secret will be removed. If my theory is incorrect, then the secret will remain. In which case, and I hope I'm wrong, I can deploy the key vault in my my other deployment and update the secrets and not have to worry about them being in the deployment. But we'll see. So, moment of truth, the secret remains, and it looks like it's still there. So I'm just going to do a refresh just to be absolutely certain. Because if that's the case, that means I can deploy the key vault, update the secrets, and then deploy again. So secrets, just to be there, it's still there. Okay, so secrets don't get removed from the key vaults when they're not present in the ARM template. So that's good. That means that I can deploy this. It means that I was wrong, which is good to be wrong. So going back to here, I'm going to add a new resource at the beginning. That mirrors what we have kind of done out of here. And I'm a little sad because in some of my previous work on this, I did have like the name generation for this because it's a little special. Um, and that's all lost now. So for the access policies on this, I need to refer back to the thing, but this should be resource. No, it's not resource group. It's the subscription dot subscription tenant ID. All right, so need to reference that. And this name for the vault. So we're not doing this stuff anymore. hostname binding, SCM, that one's not used anymore. And I'm pretty sure hostname binding is still there. Yeah. So I was taking in the vault name because we were requiring it here, and we were requiring the vault resource group because we were doing this in a different one. But now that we're going to do these all in the same vault, all in the same thing, we'll have that in here. So we don't need the vault resource group or the vault name anymore. You can get rid of those. So all we'll need is the function and that. So I need to look at creating a new vault because it'll tell me the max characters for this. I can delete this key vault because I don't need it anymore. Or, you know, you could not let me delete it, whatever, that's fine. Just go in here, delete, yes. Go here, add, key vault, create, and if I enter a really long name, it should give me a warning. 3 and 24 characters, okay. Because I want my name to be I want my key vault name to be like I want it to have KV at the end, just because the function and the key vault icons look similar. So I had this before. Let's see, vault name equals. So we're going to concat, and then we're going to inside of here if greater length I can actually copy this and adjust it. This is key vault part is what we'll do. Name part. Just so it's a little bit easier to read, I'll just kind of copy this that I was doing here. Instead of 10, we're going to do 22. I think on the safe side, I'm going to do 21, and then this becomes concat variables vault name part and KV. So it'll take the function name, and if it's greater than 21 characters, it'll truncate it to 21 characters and do that. right, so what I did here was misspell vault. That's definitely what I did there. Um, and this is why I like the code spell thing. It lets me know when I do that. Um, code spell extension. So basically took the vault name is being derived from the function name, and it's taking the first 21 characters and then uh, adding KV to the end. Um, and if it's less than 21 characters, it just uses the function name itself and appends that. And that way we get a 23 character name that is the key vault name. And then now we've got to change our code down here that references some of this stuff. So instead of parameters, this is going to be variables, key vault name, or vault name rather. This access policy we need to change. This is giving me access to it, which is all well and good, but that's not actually who needs to access it. The site needs to access it. So the site creates a system assigned one. Now we've got a circular dependency because the app settings use the vault. You know what? You know what? Screw it. The vault just has to live separate. I don't want to work through this. It's such a pain. Okay. Never mind. Forget that happened. Let's just Control Z our way back to happiness. I hope I can Control Z that far back. Okay, so this I can't get rid of because it's not in use. Okay, and then I can get rid of this resource. Circular dependency happened there. So I need to do, the way that I was thinking this would work is that I'd be able to deploy the key vault first, and then once the key vault is deployed, then the deployment would fail afterwards, but the vault would be deployed, but all the rest of it wouldn't. Then you could go in and populate the secrets into the key vault, and then go back and run the deployment again, and it would complete doing the rest of it. But the problem is that the key vault requires that the application have access to the has an access policy allowing the site managed service identity to access it. So that means that I have to have the key vault depend on the site creation so that I can reference the MSI in the access policies. But in the site, I have a dependency on the vault existing because I make references to it. So that's just not going to work. So screw it. I could engineer around it again by probably separating out the configurations out of the site, but I just don't feel like trying to make that work anymore. So I'm good. I'm good that this is working. I'm going to try redeploying again with it just to make sure that everything's working right. And while that's deploying, I'm going to step away for a second and I'll be right back. So yep, that looks like it's working. Um, so undoing the changes are good. We're solid there. Uh, all right. So that's the gist of getting the ARM template written for this. It's definitely nowhere near where I'd like it to be. Um, be that as it may, it is working. So the next step is to test deploying the function app to it. So I'm going to cd into source just to be sure here, and go into the Azure add-on, go into functions, go into deploy function app. It's thinking about it. This takes some time to come up for the first time you access it. So I'm basically deploying the exact same code to a different to the test functions app. Turn on log streaming there. Maybe catch something interesting, though I doubt it. Host lock lease was acquired, so that usually indicates that the app is up and running. Let's look at the app in I guess we go back over here. Have a look at the functions app, and it's seeing some functions there. So the functions were deployed. So app settings should still be there. And one funny thing is that the if I look at overview, platform features rather, deployment center, I just have a manual deployment, but that should in theory disappear after I do this. So I'm going back into VS Code. Now that I've deployed my app, I want to try deploying the infrastructure and see what that does to the state of the app. And hopefully what this means is that it won't affect the actual application code, although it's quite possible. Um, and that I can always redeploy infrastructure to make changes to things like the settings, add additional app settings without having to also redeploy the app. Although my plan is to deploy the infrastructure and the app every single time. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. So finished without error. Um, but let me look at the app itself. Refresh here. And I was curious whether or not deployments would disappear, because deployments are also something that you can do with ARM template. Um, it's basically like adding information about the uh, resource, but I don't know if they're like secrets in that they're not idempotent or what. So we'll see. I'm just gonna look at the functions here. This is update this. Yeah, the functions are still there. I'll try restarting the app just to yep. So it's looking good. Like it looks like the infrastructure deployment is not affecting the application. Application deployment doesn't affect the infrastructure. Um, but I just want to double check the deployment center, see if that removes the deployment. Because one nice thing when you're using the Azure pipelines for deploying the function app is that it gives you all kinds of neat information. So if I go here into the production one, which that is not it, the Twitch stream notifications, and I go into the function here, and I go to the deployments there, and wait for that to load. For whatever reason, deployments are taking forever to display. Yeah. So you get this nice information about the last deployment and which release it was, and this like leads back to a source version, a build, so I can follow this, and I get the source at the time of the this is the commit that was deployed, this is the build that was deployed, and this is the release that was deployed. So that's kind of nice to have, but um, wow, this really takes a long time to load. It should only have the one deployment or none. Oh, let's try closing that out and opening the deployment center again. Maybe I got some stale UI. Okay, so it looks like the infrastructure deployment does not get rid of the deployment information, so that's cool. So the next phase of this is to get a working CI/CD pipeline for both the infrastructure and the application. So going back to VS Code, I've been making these changes, but I haven't been on a branch. So I've got a couple of things. Settings, that's some VS Code stuff. Anything? Yeah, I want to keep this. Uh, Azure deployments, um, Azure parameters. So I do want to rename this file before I commit it. This, I can get rid of this. This, I can get rid of this. And I'm gonna just double check this host.json file, see what's changed in that. It's just spacing. So I'm gonna revert that. Go back to VS Code. So the changes are that I've got some settings in the VS Code, the settings JSON on the VS Code. I added some editor settings to ensure that I'm using like 2 spaces on the JSON because I prefer that instead of 4. The new file, Azure deployment, and Azure parameters. So the there's like a common naming scheme for these. I think it's like Azure deploy.json. I think if I find that, yeah. So like the names that are often used is Azure deploy and Azure parameters. So I'm going to continue with that theme and rename my files before I submit them. So rename this one. And now here should have all of these. I'm gonna, before I submit, I'm gonna add this to the workspace dictionary so that it gets ignored here. Why is there a squiggly for this? Okay. That's cute. There's a CGI app. Wow. CGI. That's crazy. Who uses that anymore? I'm just gonna go through and look for spelling errors that it's identified in these files and either add them to the dictionary. Workspace dictionary anyways. Kind function app add to workspace dictionary. With the goal that like I should be able to get squigglies on this. This is going again? No. Okay. Add this. Add this. Add this. Add this. Any other problems that you see on this page? Specify CGI. So on this one, Azure websites, add that to the workspace dictionary, and add this one to the workspace dictionary as well. Or not? You're not gonna let me? All right. There, so there's no problems with either of those files anymore. And what that does is in the settings JSON, it adds them there. So if somebody else were to clone my project and run it, and they have the spell code spell extension on, these would also be nice and ignored in their spelling errors as well. So I'm going to stage all these changes, and then I'm going to create a new branch. So just going to add a commit here to add the ARM template and parameters that push this up. And switching over to Firefox here. And in this repo here, should be able to go to branches, and I should be able to see this branch now. Feature infrastructure as code. So this is the branch that we're working on. We're not ready to do a pull request because I need to set up some cloned builds and deployments, and check some changes on that. So I'm going to clone this one. I'm going to call this IAC here. So the steps that I had before are to do .NET restore, .NET build, .NET publish, and publish artifacts. I need to include some additional things in this though. I think I can clone this one. Can I clone it? Clone task. There we go. I need to also, in the drop, pass in the, this is because it's on the master branch. I need to change this from master to the feature infrastructure as code branch. Then come here, and then I should be able to config. I can't do both. So Azure deploy JSON. Does that work? Drop artifact publish location. Yeah, that's good. All right, so I basically need to, when I'm doing this, the drop needs to include both the published .NET app or library, so to speak. And then I also need to uh, include the um, Azure deploy JSON and the Azure parameters JSON. Just looking at the file names, they look right. Yep. Okay. So that should hopefully do that. So I'm going to save in queue. And then have a look at the build. Copy this name, put it in here. Okay. So that should just copy both of these up in theory. Save in queue. Come on. All right, so looking at the drop artifact, I should have source zip the Azure deploy JSON and the parameters JSON. Um, so now in the releases, I need to clone this release. And rename it IAC here. Need to update the artifact that it's triggered from and remove this one. Add an artifact to use the build that we are working with here. Use the latest. Okay. Turn on the filters. Make sure that it's only going for the branch of feature. Where is it at? I don't see it. Oh, I gotta scroll down. I need to clean up my branches. So save this one. Oh, well, not yet. Still more to do. Now I need to update the triggers on this one. Set the artifact filter on this one to ensure that it's also only coming from the infrastructure as code. Pre-deployment gate I've still got on. Save. I'm not quite ready to save. The tasks here, there's one here. I need to update this and function app. This one needs to go to the test stream 1 and needed to update that, so that's good. Now I need to add another task. So there should be some Azure deployment ones. I haven't used them because I usually use PowerShell to do my deployments, but I imagine that there's something where you can do Azure resource group deployment, like so. Add that. Update it with my subscription that I'm working with. Create or update resource group. Resource group name is the one that I've been working with, which is this one right here. Location is so click authorize. Oh, let me try borrowed sub. Does this one have this? Yes. All right, there we go. Location West US 2. Template location linked artifact. URL of the file. Okay. Template. Drop. This is cool. I've never seen this selector before. I'm gonna have to dig into their code that they're doing that to see how that comes up, because that's really neat. All right, so that's cool. That builds that. That's a really neat selector here. Being able to browse the thing. So there's a parameters file, override template parameters, no. Deployment mode, complete. Enable prerequisite. What's this? Oh, that's cool. Advanced. All right, so So this actually needs to be moved up above this one because we need to do the Azure deployment before we do the app deployment. And I'm just going to make sure that this one is targeting the right one, this one is targeting the right one, because I don't want to kill my existing app. But it looks good. It looks like we've got some decent stuff here. So I'm going to save this. And then I'm going to go to the pipeline and do create a release from the most recent one of this, which is today, and create. It's going to sit at a approval notification. There we go. Ship it. Approve. And then watch the job as it runs. All right, so the resource group deployment finished. That's good. And I'm not surprised that the this thing like fails every single time. No package specified with what? Error, no package found with specified pattern. Okay, I have to fix that in the release side. Here, edit. So it was saying that the thing was wrong here. So I just need to update this path. It's a different path because it's a different build artifact. So yeah, let's save this. Pipeline and new release, create a release, and we're all good there. Continue. Release 2 is running. Approve. Man, shipped every time. Ship it. Then we watch this agent job. So this took a minute last time. And now it's deploying the application. Successfully deployed the app service. Bam. So that's what success looks like, people. The application then, if we go here and look, I'm going to go back to overview, refresh this. Got some functions here. So those are nicely deployed. I've got, should show some deployment history. Shows the failed deployment, shows the current deployment with the release. Although the release numbers are wrong on that, but I'll let it slide. We'll just make sure it links to the right thing. But this branch now has full CI/CD pipeline for the infrastructure and the code. And that's pretty awesome. So the next step, which I'm definitely not going to do today, would be to check that this is working. So do some tests against the deployed API on this test instance, make sure it's working the same way, make sure that things are working through. And then after that, it will be a matter of making the right changes to point this at the existing resource group and apply it. I'll have to move out the key vault from the existing resource group to a different resource group, and then update the parameters file, and then update the build and release definitions for the actual production stuff after the code is live. So we'll make the code changes, merge them in, and then do the build and release updates, and then test out the build and release, and hopefully I don't blow away my application. The good news is that like I've got all of this in a kind of way where I can redeploy it. The only thing that's like not extremely the only thing that's fragile is the key vault. And so long as I don't have that in the same resource group and I remember to do that, it should be fine. This is taking forever to load. Why? Like, just let me have the page. I just want to make sure that these click back. Let's see if I still have. No. Anyways, the work on this is got some decent progress here. I've got proof of concept working for the infrastructure deployment and the code deployment pieces. We already know the configuration as code piece works, so I'm not too worried about that. And we've got it plotted out what the next steps are on this, so I'm pretty happy to have this as a stopping point for today. So I thank everyone for watching that is watching, and I hope to see you back.